Today I'm going to show you how to make a quick yeast-based pizza. So the ingredients I'm going to need today are 125 grams of strong plain flour, half a sachet of quick-acting easy bake yeast, so half a pack of that, half a teaspoon of salt, half a tablespoon of olive oil, 75 millilitres of water, and that's 25 millilitres of boiling and 50 millilitres of cold to make it up to a lukewarm temperature. And then if you're adding anything to your base like mixed herbs, garlic or cheese, you can get those prepared ready to put into your base dough. So first of all, I'm going to sieve my flour into the bowl. Okay, then I'm going to add the salt to one side of the bowl and my half a sachet of yeast, quick acting yeast, to the other side of the bowl. And then I'm going to add my oil to my water, which I've measured out. And then I'm going to make a well in the middle of the flour, okay? And I'm going to pour that water and oil mixture into the middle of the flour. Okay, and then I'm going to mix it with a wooden spoon. The reason I put the salt on the other side of the bowl to the yeast is the salt can actually kill the yeast, and obviously I don't want that, so I'm trying to separate them. An alternative way is to sieve the salt in with the flour at the same time. Okay, so it's going to look a little bit like this at the minute. It's going to look slightly dry, but it will all come together. Okay, I don't want it too wet. Okay, all right, so I'm just going to take off the excess dough from the spoon. Okay, and I'm going to get my clean hands in there, so make sure you're following hygiene rules for this. Okay, so get your hand into the bowl and you should be able to mix it all together so it comes into a ball. So don't be tempted to add any more water or oil, okay, otherwise it will make it too wet. Okay, so now I'm going to tip it out onto a clean surface. And I'm going to start a process called kneading. Okay, and we're using strong plain flour today because it contains a protein called gluten. And strong plain flour has a lot more gluten in it than ordinary plain flour. So we want the dough to have a stretchy ability so that when the yeast starts to ferment and produce carbon dioxide, the gluten that's developed in the dough will be able to capture those little pockets of carbon dioxide. So kneading, KNEAD, okay, that's how you spell it, is pushing the dough and pulling it back towards you. And also this is warming up the yeast. Okay, so it's going to start the process of fermentation, where, as I said, it produces the carbon dioxide. The reason we use lukewarm water as well, by the way, is because if we used boiling water, because yeast is a living organism, the boiling water would kill the yeast straight away, and we don't want that. We want to look after it. We could have used cold water to bind the mixture together, but that would just take longer for the yeast to start the fermentation process. So I'm going to do this for 10 minutes until the dough looks lovely and smooth and glossy on the surface. Okay. Okay, so I've been kneading this for about 10 minutes now, and the surface is starting to look quite smooth and glossy. I haven't actually added any flour to my work surface because I don't want to dehydrate the dough. But if you find that it is a little bit sticky, just do a very, very light dusting of flour just to stop it sticking to your work surface. Okay, don't add too much. Okay, so the surface of the dough should look lovely and smooth and glossy, which this does. And if I put my finger in the middle, it should bounce back. It shouldn't leave an indentation. Okay, so that's perfect now. That's ready to roll. Okay, so again, if you need a little bit of flour, just pop a light dusting on the work surface. and on your rolling pin if you think it's necessary. Squidge the dough down and then start to roll it into your desired shape. Okay, so this is the sort of shape and size that I want. Okay, so I'm going to stop rolling now, and then what you should be able to do is lift it up off the surface like this. And what I do to just make sure it's lovely and stretched is I hold it up in the air, and if you have kneaded it properly, you should be able to do this like they do in the pizza restaurants, okay, without it splitting. All right, and that just thins out the dough, makes it lovely and neat and thin. Okay, then I'm going to pop the dough onto a greased baking tray. So this tray is specifically for a pizza, okay, but you know, a flat tray without holes is absolutely fine as long as you've greased it, a metal tray. Okay, or even a pizza stone if you're making this at home. Okay, so I'm going to leave that now for a few minutes while I make the sauce, okay, because what I want the dough to do now and the yeast to do is start to prove, P-R-O-V-E, where the yeast will produce carbon dioxide and will just give a nice sort of fluffy texture to the pizza base. Okay, so while the pizza dough is proving in a warm place, just on the work surface in the kitchen is absolutely fine. I've preheated the oven, by the way, so the kitchen should be getting nice and warm now. So if you've got a gas oven, it's gas mark 7, and if you've got an electric oven, it's 190, 200 degrees centigrade. So now I'm going to start making the tomato sauce to go on the base. Okay, so ingredients wise, what we need is a clove of garlic. So this is a bulb of garlic, but you only need one little clove from it. Whoops. Okay, you need half a tablespoon of oil, half a big tin of tomatoes. So there's 200 grams of tinned tomatoes in there. I'm using the ones that are already chopped up. I've got a tablespoon of tomato puree, or you could use sun-dried tomato paste, which is lovely too. I haven't got any fresh basil today, so I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of mixed dried herbs, and I've got a bit of salt and pepper to taste, which I can add later to the sauce. Okay, so first of all then, I'm going to peel and crush the little clove of garlic. So I've got a little board here, I've got my vegetable knife, okay, using the claw method, I'm just going to chop the top and the bottom off the clove of garlic, and then I'm going to peel the outer skin off. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop this really finely. Okay, if you've got a garlic crusher, that's absolutely great. Okay, but if you haven't, then we need to chop this into very small pieces. So I'm going to use the bridge method, and then I'm going to use the claw method to chop it into tiny pieces. You can crush this with the back of a knife as well, but I'm going to keep it a little bit chunky. So use the claw, be very careful when you're cutting up the garlic. Okay, so once that's all done, okay, I'm then going to get my little saucepan, and I'm going to put the oil into the saucepan, okay, and then I'm going to put the chopped up or crushed garlic into there. Right, I'm now going to heat it gently, okay, so I'm going to use the back ring, okay, of the hob, and I'm making sure that the handle's to the side as well, so that I don't walk into it. I'm going to get a wooden spoon, okay, I'm just going to keep a really close eye on that because I don't want the garlic to burn, so it's a lowish heat, okay. If the garlic burns, it will taste really bitter, and I don't want that, okay. So that's just going to take a minute or so. I can just start to hear it sizzling now. So just keep giving it the odd stir, and it's just cooking the garlic slightly. Okay, now I'm going to take that off the heat now, okay, and I'm going to let it cool down for a couple of minutes before I add my cold tomatoes to it, otherwise it will spit and sizzle. So let it cool down for a couple of minutes before you add those cold tomatoes. So the oil in the garlic mixture is now a little bit cooler, and now I'm going to be able to safely add those cold tomatoes to the saucepan. Okay. Okay, give that a little stir now. And I'm going to add my fresh basil or my dried herbs, so I'm using mixed herbs here. Okay, give that a little stir. And then I'm going to return it to the heat, a gentle heat, for about 10 minutes. Okay, so this is going to cook and cook the tomatoes down so the sauce is a lot richer and thicker. Okay, so that's just going to do its thing now for 10 minutes. Keep an eye on it and just stir it occasionally. So a lowish heat. Okay, so this has been bubbling away now for about 10 minutes. Okay, and it's starting to get a lot thicker. It's condensing down, okay, reducing. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little mash with a potato masher, okay, just to break it down even more. So just take it off the heat and gently squidge it with the potato masher. This will make the sauce smoother. Okay, and then I'm going to add some tomato puree or sun-dried tomato paste to thicken it up even more. A little bit of salt and pepper. Give it another little stir. Okay. And then I'm just going to let it cool down. Okay, because if I were to put that on top of my base, my dough now, it would be so hot that it would kill the yeast off. Okay, so I'm just going to let that cool down, make sure the heat's off the on the hob. Let it cool down in a lovely cool place on a work surface. If you've got a trivet to put that hot pan on, that's even better. Okay, so you don't melt your work surfaces. Okay, and just let that cool down. About 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm going to do my veg prep. Okay, so I've prepped up my vegetables. I've got spring onions, I've got cherry tomatoes, I've got peppers, olives, I've got my cheese, which I'm using is mozzarella today. I've got some mixed herbs and I've got some crushed chilies. Okay, so I've prepped those up while the sauce has been cooling down a little bit. And now I'm ready to put the sauce onto the dough. Okay, so start in the middle. You might not need all of your sauce because you don't want to overdo it with sauce. Otherwise the bottom and the dough will be soggy. Okay, so make sure that the sauce is being spread all the way to the edges. If you want to do a stuffed crust, by the way, you've got to do that first before you put the sauce on, a bit easier. And make sure that dough's on the tray before you try and do a stuffed crust. Otherwise you won't get it on the tray without it all coming apart. Okay, so I'm not doing a stuffed crust, as you can see. So spread the sauce all the way out to the edges. So you can see it's just a very thin layer, okay, not overdoing it. And it's evenly distributed over the dough. And I've just used this little palette knife, by the way, okay, to spread it, but you could use just the back of a spoon, a big spoon. Okay, next we're going to start putting cheese and all our other ingredients on. Okay, so first of all I'm going to sprinkle the cheese over, again nice and evenly. So not a big mountain of cheese in the middle, otherwise the middle of the dough won't cook. It'll be soggy and raw. And then I'm going to start positioning my vegetables where I want them. Let's start to do a pretty design. So I've got my little cherry tomatoes, so let's dot those around. I think I might put some peppers in between each of these, so it's a bit like a spiral. Okay, and then I'm going to put some olives on, so dot some olives around to give it that lovely salty flavour and a little bit of green colour. Okay, and then finally I've got some lovely chopped up spring onions that I've chopped at an angle, so just pop those on, doing it quite randomly and abstract, as you can see. But again, make sure that they're evenly distributed over the pizza. Okay, and finally, got a few peppers left there, I'll pop those in the middle, don't want to waste anything. And finally I'm just going to sprinkle a few herbs over the top, and then a few chilies, a few chilli flakes. So just sprinkle those lightly over the top. You can put fresh herbs on, you can put them on now, or you can put them on later after they're cooked, it's even better. Okay, if you're using fresh basil, just tear it up after it comes out of the oven. I'm just going to put a few chilli flakes on, give it a bit of a kick. Okay, and then that's going to go into the oven for about 12 to 15 minutes until it's golden brown and well cooked through. Okay, so it's nice and ready now, guys. Okay, so it's been in about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, I've just got it out using oven gloves. It's gone lovely and crispy around the outside. The cheese is melted and the veg looks lovely too. Okay, so have fun making your pizzas, guys, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.